Hello and welcome to an amazing podcast where we are talking about Redline. Dramatic pause is dramatic. This is Initial D.
Honestly, so I haven't seen Initial D, but I heard someone say this is like a mashup of Star Wars, Initial D, and something else that I can't remember, and I feel like that's probably right. Although I've seen clips of Initial D, and it does not seem as crazy as this.
God damn it, dude! You missed my joke. My name begins with D. Initial D.
I mean, but you find a way to make that joke for like every single series.
Yeah.
By the way, when I was editing the one for Dorohedoro, and you called yourself, I think you called yourself Monster D, or something like that. I was like, that sounds like Monster Dick. Yeah. So
I mean, not to brag.
So yeah, and this is Modi. How are you doing, everybody?
You couldn't have called yourself Motor Modi?
No.
You make this so much harder than it has to be.
I don't have the sense for humor that you do.
But yeah, so we are talking about Redline.
Yes.
What did you think?
This movie was crazy. So Redline is like an interstellar, high action, high stakes, no fucks given space race. And it's just beautiful. Like there's like, what more could you want out of entertainment? Like this is it. This is the epitome, you know?
This is basically Mad Max mixed with the Wacky Races, that old Cartoon Network show, Hanna-Barbera.
Yeah, that's so true.
And it's magical. It's so magical.
I saw a comment on the. So, did you watch this sub or dub, by the way?
Dub.
Oh, okay, yeah. I also watched the dub. I found it on YouTube for free, and someone commented that this is what NASCAR would look like if it did 100 pounds of pure cocaine and survived.
I meant they didn't go for the obvious, did 100 pounds of speed, but I'll let that slide.
Oh, that's so good. You see, no one has your sense for humor.
Appreciate it, man. Appreciate it. So, for me, pros, animation, absolutely gorgeous. This is Sakuga overload to the max. This is might be some of the most consistently beautiful this is probably the most consistently amazingly animated film I've seen outside of Studio Ghibli. On top of that, everything is so colorful. The character designs are so crazy, so awesome. They did a great job of establishing each different character. Mm-hmm. The mechanical Sakuga is off the chain. The action and set pieces are great. I wouldn't say like all of them are as over the top as they could have been, and some of them are kind of like base level in terms of just like conceptual, in terms of concept, but execution is just wild, insane, and again, animation is off the charts. You can literally feel like this show feels and looks like it's going 100 miles times the speed of light. And I said show, but I meant movie, sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. Like,
I would also...
You can go ahead.
I was going to say, like, and in terms of cons, I don't have too many. I think my biggest con is I wasn't too much of a fan of the female characters in this. I know this is probably like... This is 2009, but I still feel like it felt a little too fan service-y, and that's mostly because it felt like almost every single female character solely existed for eye candy. Even like the female lead, I wasn't really feeling her as much as a character, or as much as our main character, or as our main protagonist.
Mm-hmm.
But boom. But I will say she isn't the worst. I feel like they gave her the. I honestly feel like they gave her the minimum amount of personality or agency, or the minimum amount of character, just to keep her outside of being just a body pillow or fan service figurine, kind of.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Did you have anything else for cons?
Not really. Pros, amazing animation, stellar world, cool action scenes. Light cons, I feel like some of the... Well, another con. And this is something like I have to compare to Promare, which I'll probably do a little bit more at the end, is that one of the things I love about Promare is it always felt like it hit the maximum amount of craziness it could have at every individual moment. I felt with this, there were a number of moments where it could have gone a little bit crazier. It was just a little shy off that max. That's like... That's neither a pro or a con. It's like right in the middle. It's just something like a little bit of a nitpick. And for cons, I would say like what little fans like would be the female characters feeling like they mostly exist for fan service, and the said fan service feeling very unnecessary. I felt myself getting more distracted by it than sucked in, and maybe that's just because watching anime for a while, you get used and sort of desensitized to this stuff. Yeah. Like, you can see fan service anywhere, but you can't see, like, over-the-top psychedelic space racing and junk like that.
Yeah.
And I would much rather prefer it from, like, distracting me from that.
Yeah, true. Yeah, so for me, well, okay, so to respond to the animation thing, like, when you were saying that you felt like there were some parts where it could have gotten just a little bit crazier and it would have been perfect. To translate that to normal human, that means that it was perfect, because you are probably the most extreme person when it comes to this stuff that I've ever known. So that probably means they did it just about right. So that's the first thing. Second thing, yeah, I agree for the most part about the fan service thing, but it didn't bother me too much with this because there just weren't that many female characters, which you could say, you know, is a con in itself. But like, I can literally only think of 4, which were the Super Boing sisters, the Sonoshi, and then Princess Sungrass. Those are the only 3. Sungrass, she didn't really have any fan service, and then yeah, so I
completely forgot she existed, honestly.
Yeah. So I'm gonna talk about her later on, but yeah, yes, you're right that they were fan serviced a lot, but they just didn't even show up that much, so like it didn't even bother me that much, except for that one scene when Sonoshi was topless. I was like, god damn, like damn.
Same.
That might be my number 1 scene in the movie.
Okay, to be fair, I can admit that was nice, but at the same time I was thinking like, is this really necessary? Like,
yeah. Well, I'm going to start to speculate, because I have a lot of stuff to say in terms of pros and cons and like speculation. So, by the way, so like, yeah, I'm probably going to go off on a huge ramble. So just feel free to like stop me and say something if you have something to say at any point. But in terms of my speculation, so I don't do this a lot, but this movie was so good that I actually like looked into like, you know, the background of the movie. So this is a Madhouse movie and is directed by Takeshi Koike, and this was his first movie that he ever did. And it took 7 years to animate it. They started in 2002 or 2003 or something like that. So it took super long to make this movie. And I'm thinking, my theory is, by the time that this movie was over, I like, no matter how much you care about what you're making, no matter how much you like it, I'm sure he must have been tired of it and he never wanted to see it again.
Mm-hmm.
So tying that back into like the topless scene, I'm guessing like that might be something where they're just like 4 years into it and they're like, oh my god, like we're spending so much money on this, like we have to make this we have to make sure this thing makes as much money as possible, let's just add this in, you know. I mean, it's a pretty crazy movie, but like it's pretty underrated, I think, because it's not talked about
Definitely.
a lot, and I barely heard about it, you know. So yeah, so that's one thing. And also another thing I wanted to speculate on, this is 100,000% speculation, but so I looked at the next, like what other stuff he did after Redline, and this was his first movie. Props to him and the cast, by the way, because like you said, the animation, spectacular, beautiful, out of this world, like crazy.
7 years, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So after this, for the last, ever since then, all the movies he's directed are just like the Lupin the Third movies that have been coming out. So to me, that's pretty interesting, because you see someone who spent 7 years on this super artistic, crazy, clearly it's like you put a lot of love into that film, like a very unique film, Redline, and then you go and you direct movies for a big franchise. Not saying that they're bad or not saying that they were easy to make, but clearly there's like a difference, right? So I'm guessing after Redline, he was like, I am never doing that shit again, you know. And he was like, and I need to make money, you know. And I don't begrudge him that at all, because he put it like, he made something amazing, and I feel you. Like after that, if you spend 7 years on a movie and you make something that great, and like I'm sure he must have been tired, like he must have been disgusted by Redline by the time he finished it, you know. Like I know I'd be like, I never want to hear the word Redline ever again.
No, and like, I'm not sure if you know this, but I actually found a secret interview where I actually found secret backstage footage of like the studio execs telling him to make a Redline sequel and him drop kicking them out of a window.
And then jumping out the window himself right after.
Honestly, if I made something like Redline and put that much like blood, sweat, and tears into it, I would probably retire afterwards.
Yeah, I would retire.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I would have no problem if this guy went on to work as a PA on the Transformers movies after this. Like, you've made your contribution to society if you're the person who made Redline. And not just him, everyone who worked on the movie, like the whole cast, animators, all that. They all did a really good job. So yeah, that's just like my preliminary speculation. So now for my pros and cons. I have a lot of pros. So my first one is that, and you can always jump in if you have something to say. My first one is that the premise is simple, but it's not boring, right? Because like it feels like the writers added just the right amount of moving parts to keep the plot interesting without it getting overwhelming. Like if it was just like a space, a race on a planet in space, that would be interesting enough, but I would probably find it boring. But then when you add like the fact that they're doing it on a planet with like, you know, some crazy egomaniac ruler who doesn't want them, you know, to be racing on it, and then you add the mafia in it, and then you add a love interest, then that's like the perfect amount of like intrigue you need to really keep the movie from getting boring at any point, because there's always something going on, right? And it's not too much and it's not too complicated, and it's not hard to follow either, you know?
So let me ask you a question. In terms of pacing, like I felt the pacing for this movie was really good, but I want like, how would you feel if they sort of shorten the middle section down a little bit more? So the like point between like the first main race and then the final Redline race, and instead extended the final Redline race. So like you have like the whole races going on, you have like the explosions, and through all that we use that to sort of tell the story of these characters. So you use that to like establish the rivalries, you use it to build out do more world building for the planet.
I feel like I wouldn't have liked that. I think I prefer the way they did it because usually I'm not a I like action, but I like action best when it's not drawn out and like it's just it it it's quick, and I feel like if like for example, I feel like it was probably like the last 20 or 30 minutes of the movie was the race, maybe like the last 20 minutes I think was the race. So if it had been more than that, I feel like it would have been too long in my opinion. And I like the fact that in the middle of the movie they used that time to like build on everything else. That's part of the reason why I say that it had just the right amount of like moving parts to keep you interested, because the middle of the movie would have been boring if there weren't like, the war, the mafia, and the love interest. Those three things, if like those three things were enough to keep you interested during the middle of the movie. And like it also lets you have time to like build up right to the final race. And I don't think the final race could have been any shorter or longer. Like I think it was like the perfect length, so in terms of pacing. So
I agree. Now, actually, one thing I will sort of send the movie for, and this is like a bit of an like, I think it's like in that middle ground between nitpick and con. So basically, the final race takes place on a planet called it was Robo Planet, right?
Mm-hmm.
My biggest issue with that is I did not get that impression from how the planet looked. If you told me that there was a race on a planet called Robo Planet, or
Robo World.
Robo World, sorry. If you told me there was a race going on a planet called Robo World, I would have expected a lot more cyberpunk elements.
Yeah, that's true actually.
Like every single character is like a crazy mecha. You have like the planet's made out of like iron and steel. Like the fact that it had just random organic factory workers didn't make much sense to me. And they could have pushed that ass. Like, they should have made it like Cybertron from the Transformers movies. The other slight nitpick I will take with the film is they point out that magic exists in this world, and that kind of felt utterly pointless. So, like, the Super Boyne sisters, they established they use something called magic, but you never all their magic just seems like perfectly normal science and technology. So that kind of felt a little wasted or a little pointless.
I think it was only Princess Sungrass who used magic. Or maybe not, actually. I don't know. I'm pretty sure she's the only one who was allowed to use magic. Or did they used it even though they weren't allowed to? Was that what happened? Because I remember there was a part when they did something that just didn't seem normal.
Well, that's the problem. Like, this is such a weird, high sci-fi world where it makes the biggest issue that a lot of shows where they try to like mix science and magic, like a certain magical index or ruby, and that sin is they don't differentiate the magic from the technology. So it's like, oh yeah, we can like make things levitate and move on their own. It's like, yeah, but we have hover tech and autopilot. Or it's just like, oh yeah, we can like teleport things. We have warp drives. But we can shoot lasers. We have a giant alien death monster that can like blast things with sonic screams. That's a perfectly synthesized bioweapon. It's just like that. Oh, that's always been a huge pet peeve of mine, where the magic and the science just look exactly the same. If I was like thinking of a world where you have like that mix of science and magic, I would picture the magic users like throwing fireballs and bending elements, and the science users using like power armor, guns and bullets, and giant robots, kind of.
Yeah, I can see
Like,
that.
make it so that magic can only do certain things, and it's clear what those certain things are, and make it so that the skill set and a certain thing science can do be super clear as well.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Like if you're going to have both magic and technology, then yeah, you're right. They should probably be differentiated better. I don't necessarily have a problem with them both existing in the same world, but yeah, I agree that
Mm-hmm.
they should be differentiated better than the way it was. But also, I think I could be wrong about this, but I mean, I know for sure that there's a whole lore behind this whole movie that just never even made it into the movie, and I'm going to mention some of it later on. Um, but and I think also at first they were trying to make it a show, so that could be part of
That
the
makes
reason
sense.
why. Yeah. So, but yeah, and yeah, overall I agree with your point. So, yeah, okay, so moving on with my pros. So, next pro, you pretty much touched on this actually, like the animation, like you said everything about it better than I could say it. So, yeah, I completely agree. Animation beautiful, just nothing. I have nothing to say about it except that it's amazing. Um,
Mm.
Another thing I like about it is it doesn't take itself too seriously. You know, it's just like
No.
it's such a. I was for a big part of the movie. I wasn't sure what kind of story it was going to be. Whether it was going to be like a sad story where like there's. I mean, actually, I was definitely sure that's what it was going to be, but it turned out not to be like
Mm-hmm.
that. And actually, my favorite part of the movie probably was at the very end when what's his name, JP and Sonoshi won, and like they all end the race.
Mm-hmm.
This was honestly my favorite part of the movie when it showed all the all the characters who had raced. They didn't care at all. They were just like, oh my, like they just looked like they were happy and they had just had the time of their lives, and winning the race didn't matter at all. They were just like, that was awesome. Like none of it really matters. Like they're just there to race. So I like that a lot.
I mean, we'll just wait. We'll see how they feel 5 seconds later when they finally have that giant space laser up and running again.
True.
No, because when I was sawing that like ending, I was just laughing in my head. It was like, well, they're dead.
Yeah.
They're going to make splat.
That's
They're staying.
yeah, and that goes into like part of why I like it. Like when I say it doesn't take itself too seriously, like it really doesn't, because any movie,
Mm.
like if I was writing this movie, I would probably be thinking like, "Oh my god, like no one's going to take it seriously if someone doesn't die." And like no one died except maybe for like one character, right? So and like no
Mm.
one died, and it's like, "Okay, who cares?" We all had fun and it's cool. And I honestly
Yeah.
don't even see that much unless it's like kiddie shows. So that was kind of refreshing. Um,
Yeah.
so that's that. And then another part, this kind of ties into it, is that like yeah, it's like a very like a it's like a unapologetically happy ending. Like just
Mm-hmm.
a perfectly happy ending. I don't think I've seen a true happy ending since I saw like Snow White or something like that. It was literally just like he wins the race, he gets the girl, even the people who lost the race are cool with it. Like everyone's just cool. Like they destroy the enemy, everyone's happy. They kill the mobster guy. It's just like awesome. Like there's no
Yeah.
there's no there's no downside to anything. And like I said, it's refreshing because I honestly don't see that. It seems like something that's common, but really it's not. Like you don't see that with stuff that's not targeted towards like little children a lot of the time.
I don't know. I mean, Avengers Endgame had a pretty happy ending. Well, I take
I
that back. I
wouldn't
take
say
that
so.
far
I would,
back.
yeah, like
I would take that far back. Yeah. Never
there
mind. Never mind.
yeah, I feel like there's always something that like most things always go for some sort of bittersweet ending where like they win but they lose something. I see that a
I
lot.
mean, Disney. Well, I'm trying to think. Yeah, I think a lot of Disney movies go at like. I feel like a show of this rating with this demographic, that kind of ending is very rare.
Yeah. Maybe that's what I mean. Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
So Next thing, you touched on this too. The characters are really good. The characters are really well developed, and like it's actually amazing.
I would not say that as much for Sonshi.
Yeah,
I don't know. Like I
yeah.
thought she was the weakest character.
I wouldn't say she was the weakest, but she was. I have a section for Sonoshi in my con, so I'll get to her. But so to me, it's actually kind of impressive that this kind of movie is just like at first glance, it really just looks like a meathead kind of movie, you know, like it's just action, and you don't really expect there to be any sort of like character growth or anything like that. But it was pretty interesting how the way it, especially with what's his name, Frisbee, the engineer, how he started, like it seems like he was like a heartless guy, and then you find out his backstory, and like you're like, oh, okay, he's not that heartless, but he's still heartless because he's gonna blow up JP at the end. But then at the end, he's like, nah, I'm not gonna do it. Like I want to see him win, and like he's about to die, like the monster's about to kill him, and he's like, I don't care, right? So that was pretty interesting. But even the more interesting one was how the mechanic guy, I forgot his name. You know, the guy with like the long
Mole.
Yeah, the guy. Oh, Mole. Okay, yeah. He looks like the guy from Spirited Away.
I know.
Yeah. So he was even more interesting because he started off as like the guy who's like, we have to play, like you're gonna get yourself killed. We can't put, you know, this engine in. Like this is ridiculous. You're gonna die. And all of a sudden, you see that like he just kind of gets into it, and like he storms the mobsters, kills them all, and then like gets drunk, blows up the bomb. He's like, who cares? Like, you know, he might die. Who cares? He's gonna win. This is the best, right? So that was actually pretty interesting to me.
Now, just to counter that, those are all really good points, but I do feel that some of those arcs were a little unearned. Because it felt like it was usually just business as normal. And I feel like Frisbee's sort of shift was a little abrupt.
I don't think
never really got like...
I feel like if we hadn't gotten the backstory, it would be abrupt. But since we did, it makes sense to me. Because like from the backstory, we find out that it's not like he started off with the mafia with bad intentions. He started off with good intentions because he literally just wanted to, I guess, make enough money so that he could race, right? And then it turned into a money thing. But now that he's seeing, like, he's sitting there, he's at the Redline, like, this is the biggest race ever, and he's seeing that JP, like, is going all out, and he's like, nah, like, I want to at least see him in first place, you know? So, to me, it felt earned.
And to be fair, as well, you could argue he never really operated that selfishly in the movie. Like, you could argue that the whole, like, initial him sabotaging was done for, like, the sheer purpose of helping him get his bail paid. So, I guess it kind of evens out.
I guess, maybe. But, yeah, I guess that's true. But I had the assumption that he expected, like, he did that knowing full well that JP could die from that crash. But yeah, but either way. So yeah, that's that. And then last pro is I thought the world, like, it felt like very it did like the Star Wars thing, you know, like it felt fleshed out without actually having to go deep, right? Because it does that thing where like if all you have to do really is like put your characters in a place where like there's a whole bunch of aliens and they all act really different, and it makes it seem like this world is alive, and I think it did a good job of that. So that's pros. Cons, one is art style.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, it's one specific aspect. It's not like I didn't like the art in general, but it's one specific aspect of the art style that I just don't like, which is the thing they do with like the shading, where it's like the harsh lighting kind of thing where all the shadows are like completely black. This is probably a really specific thing, but I really don't like that in general. Like it feels too it feels like a one of those old noir comics, and I just don't like that
Mm-hmm.
aesthetic in general. But I mean, other than that,
Okay.
amazing animation, great. My second con. Okay, so this is about Sonoshi. So yeah, she could have. I feel like they did. I feel like they did a great job with Sonoshi. Honestly, up until,
Mm-hmm.
or at least like a good job. Like she was a solid character, and she would have been a great character if she had betrayed JP. What I would have
Mm-hmm.
wanted to see was that, because to me it's felt like it definitely, like, I definitely see what you're saying, and I agree with what you're saying about how, like, at the end she kind of just turned into like just like a doll, right? And not really
Mm-hmm.
a character with her own agency, because you see in the flashback that like she cares so much about winning the red line and being the best, right? I feel like she gave in too easily, like to just
Mm-hmm.
coming along inside his car and winning together with him. I felt like that was just
Right.
what I would have wanted to happen if I was like, making the decisions, is she goes into the car with him, right? But at the very
Mm-hmm.
last second, she like sabotages him and like kicks him out the car or something, or like explodes him out the car or something like that, and she ends up winning at the very last second. And like it wouldn't even have to be like a betrayal kind of thing. It could have just been like a playful, happy kind of thing where it's just like, yeah, I'm still gonna win. And like he wouldn't care either, because he's like, he loves her. So he's like, he's like, okay, fine, you can get first place, I'll get second place, right? I feel like if they had done that, that would have been better, because it kind of just downplays her own, her own motivation and her own agency. Like she literally just like ended up just being like a girl on his arm at the end of the movie.
Yeah. Literally. For me, like, okay, so in terms of her character, I didn't really like that flashback scene as much. It does illustrate that she really wants to win, but it feels like I think my biggest problem is she's felt like a little too girly. Like you have these guys who are just like trying to be friendly, trying to be like supportive and everything, and she's just bawling her eyes out trying to get the car out. I would have liked it a lot better if she was more like playful back to them and still like illustrated that like super high drive to win. So she's just like, screw you guys, in a jokingly way, gets out the car, pulls it out herself, and then gets back out to the race. The other thing I would have also would have preferred is her car doesn't get wrecked. It still stays on the road, and the race comes down to the three of them: Machine Head, Sonoshi, and JP. And at the final, like, sort of climax of it, both their machines are exploding. They both like shoot themselves over the finish line.
Mm.
You go for the same route where JP's hair is longer, so he crosses over first, and then as soon as they all cross over, he catches her in his arms, and then that's when they go for the whole, well, you won, blah blah blah, happy ending kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. I agree with that, and I think you're right. That actually would have been a better ending than the one I suggested. So yeah, that's Sonoshi. So, and then my last con is the ending. I mean, this isn't really even a con. It's just like this would have been a cherry on top, and there just wasn't the cherry on top, but it's still good. The ending was just like abrupt. Like it literally just ends with
Yeah.
like him holding her, and then it's just like heart the end. I feel like it would have been nice if there was just like a little bit more of a conclusion, like 5 minutes more. But that's fine. Like, what else do we really need to see after that? Like, there's nothing else we really need to see, so it's cool.
Yeah, and that was my other problem. It's just like they're still on a planet, like, and you have the ruler of this planet mad as hell. You have like the two energy kaiju's like tussling in the middle of the planet as well. So it's just like it felt like they kind of just like, okay, let's end it here. Let's end it right here. This is the best place we could possibly end it without things getting overly complicated.
Yeah, yeah, true. But also, I mean, the military did get wiped out completely, so I feel like it wouldn't have been
Mm-hmm.
too hard for them to get out after that point. But yeah,
Yeah.
um, who is your favorite character?
Oof, there's a lot. I like the Lynchman character. I like JP, and I like Machine Head. I also like the crying cyborg guy. we saw at the fish market, the seafood place. I don't know. I just liked his design, and
Oh yeah, that's
honestly,
true. Yeah, he was
all the
funny.
characters were really fun.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. That's one thing. That's another thing I really liked. Like all the characters and the aliens, they each had like some weird quirk. Like
Mm.
those little chicken aliens that were like following him around, and then like Inuki, the mob boss with his cocaine, like having like his assistants rub the cocaine in his mouth for him, and then
I mean, have you had space cocaine? It's pretty awesome.
I admit I haven't, so it's understandable. Um, and then like I don't know, the ruler, with his little tube thing, that he was
Yeah.
breathing out of. The old lady at the outpost, like how she was just like acting crazy, like when he just asked for a
Hmm.
pack of cigarettes. Like all the characters had some weird thing, and obviously the best one of the characters with like weird quirks, the cyborg guy that you're talking about who cries at everything. He was definitely the
Hmm.
funniest character actually in the movie for sure. Like he was hilarious. I feel like he probably started off as like a side, like a one-off character, but like as they
Hmm.
were making it, they're like, this guy is funny, and then they just gave him more scenes.
Yeah.
But my favorite character, this is gonna be surprising because she had like literally maybe 15 seconds of screen time, is Princess Sungrass. Because
Really?
yeah, because I just like, oh, I wish we had seen more of her because I like the casually OP character. Like she just comes
Hmm.
in like with her, I don't know, like future based J-pop music in the background with her pink sparkling smoke, comes in and literally just murks the entire army and just like sets the finish line and just flies back home and sits back on her throne like, yeah. And I'm just like, that's that's exactly like my type of character. I love that. So Princess Sungrass is my number one for that. Number two, Machine Head. I mean,
Mm.
there's nothing like you don't need any explanation for Machine Head. The man has his own theme
Yeah.
song. He's Machine Head.
Yeah. That chants his own name.
Yeah, pretty much. So Machine Head, awesome, and then JP, of course. I like JP. The main thing I like about him is like his racing style, like how he doesn't use
Mm.
weapons, and like he pretty much just relies on like speed and agility. And I like
Hmm.
characters who are like that, like who fight like that. Like Aang and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
he's cool. So yeah, those are my favorite characters. Yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. Actually, I don't think I have much. Oh, actually, I have some fun facts. But before that, do you have anything else you want to say about the movie?
Nope. I think that's about it for me.
Okay, so I'll give some fun facts that I saw in the comments. Oh, speaking of comments, there was also another comment that I saw which said JP is the man who saved Josuke when he was 4. I thought you would appreciate that comment.
Sorry. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, I have some fun facts about the movie. Actually, I don't know how I could confirm this. This is just stuff that I found online, so I might be spreading fake news, but I'll spread it anyway. Um, and I mentioned,
Grain of salt, everyone.
yeah, I mentioned earlier that there's like some lore to this movie, so that's pretty much what these fun facts are. One is that Machine Head is Sonoshi's dad, actually, which is pretty interesting and actually makes a lot of sense if you think back to the movie. Like the person talked about how when they were at the restaurant, she said she was waiting for someone, and that person was like Machine Head, and like when the colonel came in and blew everything up, like the only two people who like looked over at her were Machine Head and JP. So that's enough proof for me. And the Redline was a plot by Planet Sungrass to expose RoboWorld's secrets and make them destroy their army. I think that's probably the coolest fun fact about it. Like this makes me, to me, this gives credence to the idea that maybe this was supposed to be a show, because like why would you have so much backplot for something like that,
Right.
So that's another interesting thing. And then the guy that JP saw when he was young, like the dude he looked up to who like kissed two girls at the same time, King. That guy is the mobster boss when he was young.
I was thinking the exact same thing.
Oh, okay, yeah. I didn't even realize until I saw that comment, and I went back and I looked at it and I was like, oh yeah, that's him.
I love how this film was able to like sneak so much tiny little bit of lore bits into it.
Yeah.
Like, that's such a cherry on top of everything.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, that's it. Oh, and also, I don't know. You said you saw the dub, right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So this is just my last comment, which is that Frisbee, the English dub actor for Frisbee, sounded like constipated throughout the whole movie. And yeah, that's my last comment I have to say. Movie was spectacular. I give it easily. It's a 9 out of 10. Great movie.
Yes.
I feel like it's underrated because a movie like this should be much more well known, I think. And yeah.
Totally.
What would you rate it?
So, this is an interesting thing for me. So, you know that one of my personal all-time favorite movies is Promare. So, I was kind of comparing this a lot to it. And I will say this is a really amazing movie. And in terms of quality, comparing it to Promare, it does a couple of things that I like better. So, for one thing, unlike Promare, where there were a couple of moments where I was just like taken a little bit back by like some of the sloppiness of the writing, this was written very well.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing that I also have to give it in favor, I have to like, another point against Promare I have to award this with, is the fact that the animation is always consistently good. Like, there were some moments in Promare where things were kind of like held back a little bit because of constraints and everything, but this always looked really good.
Yeah.
And in terms of grading, I will definitely give it a 9. But for me personally, I think instinctually I would probably pick Promare over this, just because it, to go back to the point I said earlier, where whenever it always hit that perfect pinnacle of like over the topness.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, Redline made much better use of its characters and its cast, which is something Promare did not do as well.
Yeah.
So I will begrudgingly say that I think this movie was better than Promare, but for me personally, I still like Promare better.
What did you rate Promare again?
I think I rated a 9 or a 10.
Oh, okay. All right.
Also, fun fact, Promare on Rotten Tomatoes has a 96%. Redline on Rotten Tomatoes has a 63%.
That's ridiculous. That's a
same audience score though.
What's the audience score? That's what matters.
86 for both.
Oh, okay. All right, that's fair. I was gonna say.
It's 93 for Promare, 86 for Redline.
Okay, I can see why people. No, actually, I can't see why people like Promare over Redline, but I can. I that's much better than the 63 or whatever. 63, that's like a crime. That's not a good score. Like whoever rates Redline a 63 is out of their mind, and I would like to see what they rate 100 because.
Yeah. So for me personally, I think if we're going like audience score, and in terms of audience score, for me, I think my personal instinctual score is definitely a 93 for Promare and 89 for maybe 90 for Redline. But in terms of like critical score, I definitely think Redline is easily a 95 and Promare an 86.
Yeah, I see that. I've already talked to death about it, but to me, pretty much because of the reasons you said, like the way it handled the cast of characters and the writing, That's the main thing that takes Redline over the top for me over Promare, because I can't even really start to enjoy the action if it's not couched in a story that like is interesting. And I think
Yes.
that's what Redline has over Promare. I feel like Promare, not to shit on Promare too much, because Promare was still a great movie, but I feel like Redline is what
Choose
Promare
your
could have been.
words.
I feel like Redline is what Promare could have been.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, I guess we both like it. I mean, I've not seen any bad review of this movie. Like it's amazing. More people should see it. To be honest.
So I have not seen many anime movies, but of things on my list and things I've seen, so Studio Ghibli films, Promare, Redline, I am convinced that Promare, Redline are my all-time favorite anime movies.
Damn. Okay.
And that is solely on the fact that I have, and like, that is fully taking into consideration that I have not seen any other anime movies.
Wait. Yeah, you have.
Just
Have
like,
you not seen any Ghibli movies?
Yeah, no, I think Promare and Redline are. I would rather watch if I had to if I had to choose between not seeing Promare or Redline, or not seeing every single Ghibli film. I would pick I would pick to watch if I could only see Promare and Redline or every single Ghibli film. I would pick Promare and Redline.
I'm kind of torn because on the one hand, Redline is really like up my alley, and like it's really my type of movie. But rewatch value wise, I feel like any Ghibli movie I've seen has more rewatch value. Like I could watch Princess Mononoke probably like 50 times, 100 times. I feel like I could probably watch Redline 10 times. You know, I don't want to get too much into that territory, because it's like it kind of downplays the fact that it's a spectacular fucking movie. But yeah, either way, great movies. Yeah, if you haven't seen it, I don't know why you'll be watching the review, but if you haven't, go see it. And yeah, do you have any last thoughts?
Awesome movie.
All right, yeah, same. So thank you for watching or listening, and have a good week. And if you have any suggestions on things you think we should watch, let us know in the comments. Bye.
Yep. Bye, and remember, keep yourselves inside, socially isolate, and watch some anime. Yep. Take it easy.